Africa's first ever gold in gymnastics goes to Algeria's Kayla Nemour, the 17-year-old Loire Valley native who fell out with the French Federation and switched a year ago. Another first ever medal guaranteed for the Olympic Refugee Team, Cindy Ngamba, qualifying for the semifinals in the women's middleweight boxing. Also, when a bronze feels like a gold, the Lebrun brothers stole the hearts of the host nation during the first week, the younger 17-year-old Felix winning his third place match in table tennis. Welcome to Destination Paris. I'm François Picard in the company of Daily Beast contributing editor Craig Copetas. How are you, sir?
Happy that France is eating a little bit of crow tonight.
A little bit of crow. Well, for that, let's go to the gymnastics. For once, it's not about Simone Biles we're talking, but Africa's first ever gymnastics gold. Selina Sykes, 17-year-old Kayla Nemour, who grew up in the center of France, but after a falling out, competed in the uneven bars for Algeria, gets the last laugh.
That's right, François. Nemour making history here, becoming the first ever gymnastic in...
Go ahead, Selina.
17-year-old made history, becoming the first... Sorry, I think there's a few technical problems. Her becoming the 17-year-old, becoming the first ever gymnast to get Africa's medal in gymnastics. The 17-year-old making history, getting Algeria's first ever medal in gymnastics and Africa's first ever medal in the sport as well. She came into qualification as one of the big favourites, the overall favourites, getting the biggest score in her qualification. Then she was under a lot of pressure from the Chinese world champion Kui Yang, who performed a stunning routine herself as well, getting 15.5 on the uneven bars. There was a lot of pressure on Nemour to deliver after that excellent routine from her rival, and she delivered big, getting a whopping score of 15.7, the routine of her life, as she said. She said it was her best ever score. She looked very emotional after the dismount, and then when she was confirmed the winner, waving the Algerian flag. There were quite a few Algerian flags in Bercy Arena. As you mentioned, she represented France until very recently. There was a feud between her family, and the French Gymnastics Federation. The tensions starting after the location of her training centre were changed, and then the tensions boiled over when she got an inflammation to her knee. She had surgery. She was cleared by her doctor, but wasn't cleared by the French Federation Gymnastics doctor, and she decided to represent Algeria so she could come to the Olympics. And well, what is France's loss is Algeria's gain, a historic medal for them, and a great story for her, obviously, because a few years ago competing for her was in jeopardy, overcoming that injury and representing Algeria, making history at this Olympic Games.
Selina Sykes, many thanks for that live update. Craig Copetas, it's always been a symbiotic tale between France and Algeria. In this case, she is French. I mean, she's born in the center of France with a small gymnastics club there in the Indre region in the Loire Valley. And yet here she is for Algeria, and there's pride on both sides of the Mediterranean.
Well, there you go. I think it's great for Algeria. And it is mud on the French Federation's face. Let's face it. She should have been competing for France. It's an interesting story worth mentioning it briefly, is that she trained at her father's gym, which was just down the street from where they grew up. And this whole imbroglio started when the French Federation said to her, well, you can't train there anymore. You have to leave your home and go to one of the designated training centers. She said, no, I want to stay home and train with my dad. This is the outcome.
And 17 years old, gold medalist. Let's turn now to the boxing ring and another story of perseverance. Cindy Ngamba, short of at least a bronze medal, and that's making history. She hails from Cameroon, but because of discrimination against sexual minorities in that Central African state, she's competing under the banner of the Olympic Refugee Team. Third time that the Olympic Refugee Team delegations existed. Never before has it won a medal. Jack Colmer-Gale has more.
This athletic family is growing. There were only 10 of them in Rio and 29 in Tokyo, but this year in Paris, a record number of 37 athletes are competing as part of the Refugee Olympic Team. And Cindy Ngamba has made history Sunday, guaranteeing the team its first ever medal, beating France's Davina Michel to advance to the semi-finals in the women's middleweight boxing. She's now guaranteed to win at least a bronze. Born in Cameroon, she moved to the UK at the age of 11, later becoming a 3-time English national champion there. Ngamba was chosen as one of the flag bearers for the opening ceremony, and she has a message for refugees around the world.
Never give up. The hard time will never last. There will be a light at the end of the tunnel. Even though it might not feel like there's nothing out, there can be changes. There will always be changes, and I want people out there to believe in themselves and keep on pushing hard.
The refugee team was founded by the International Olympic Committee in 2016 to give these athletes a chance to compete and to draw attention to the growing number of refugees and displaced people around the world.
We all have right to be here, to realize our dreams. But my dream, and the dream of all of us here, is that in the future we can all live in peace, and no one should lose their home.
According to the United Nations, almost 110 million people around the world have been forced to flee their homes.
Yeah, and a lot of questions still being asked, even though it's third time around, Craig Copetas, because we saw it during the opening ceremonies. The tradition is the Greeks always go first, then they go in alphabetical order. But sandwiched in between the other delegations was this refugee team on that boat in the River Seine.
This is a classic big deal, and it's a very huge win for IOC President Thomas Bach. The IOC back in 2016 did not want a refugee team. Thomas Bach wanted one.
This is the president.
The president, and he's an athlete. He's an Olympic athlete, fencing. He pushed for this, and a lot of the IOC members were being pushed by their countries not to go along with it because it didn't look good if you ran the National Olympic Committee in Russia or Myanmar or pick your African country. And these are the votes that elect IOC presidents. And Bach said, no way, it stops now. I'm doing this refugee team. He put his reputation on the line. And the other night we were discussing about how, the IOC has always been angling for a Nobel Peace Prize. The IOC doesn't deserve a Nobel Peace Prize. If you're going to give one for what goes on here, you give it to Thomas Bach. He really put himself, his reputation, and his guts on the line to make this happen.
And now a first ever medal.
Terrific.
And we don't know yet whether it'll be, of course, bronze, silver, or gold.
Doesn't matter. They're there. She podiumed. The Olympics is about getting on the podium. Again, these people who say, you don't win the silver, you lose the gold, they should not be allowed anywhere near the Olympic movement. This is a terrific, terrific story. And man, kudos to Tommy Bach for making this happen.
All right, that thunderous entrance is by Sports Center. James, what did you drop there? Your water bottle?
It is. Yeah, go keep refreshing.
Right.
So these.
Wait, I just want to talk about one point here. So there's the refugee team, and then there is, I guess, what you could call a renegade team. On Saturday evening, there was a gala for peace to support the refugees. It featured the likes of actress Sharon Stone, Olympic legend Carl Lewis. Among those in attendance was Kimia Yusufi. She finished last in the first round heat of the women's 100-meter dash, but was able to get her message across. After the race, she displayed on the track a piece of paper with the slogan, "Education, Sport, Our Right."
We are representing Afghan women and girls inside of Afghanistan. Don't forget Afghan girls inside of Afghanistan.
Craig Copetas, what's the status there? Because the Taliban don't want women to take part in sports, and yet there are women participating. How does that work?
The way it usually works is if the federation that controls the sport the athlete is involved in says the athlete can compete for her nation, the athlete can compete. And I believe this is what happened here. And again, good for the IOC, good for the Athletics Federation for allowing this to happen. You know, we often say, you know, the IOC is involved in skullduggery and negative politics. Well, this is a double win for them on this. If this is the kind of politics.
Because in the past, you know, instances like displaying a sign
got you thrown out. Yeah, and it was because of communist bloc nations, of corrupt African nations who were supporting the IOC with their money and their votes. And after the scandal in the late 90s, Jacques Roga and Tom Spock, they're still cleaning the place out. It's still full of corruption. But this just goes to prove that they're doing it right. It's working. It takes a long, long time.
2 Afghan sisters, by the way, James Vasina, taking part in the women's cycling race.
Yeah, but the difference also, Carlton, in here with these Afghan athletes is that they're actually not recognised by the government themselves from back there. Yes, they're competing for Afghanistan, but the Taliban have seen that for them there are 3 athletes who are actually taking part in the Olympics this year. And those 3 athletes are 3 men. The 3 women aren't actually counted within those. And if you take a look, what's interesting is to see that they are actually competing under what's Afghanistan's previous flag. Right. So not the current flag that's come in more recently under them, but they are competing with that flag which was backed by the West.
And 20 years ago, if this had happened, the IOC would have told these rummies to get lost. You're not allowed. You know, you're screwing the pooch. This time around, they said, bring it on. Good on them.
We can cross now to Jean-Emile Jammine, who joins us from the what's called Station Afrique, the place where the Africa House, where from various nations have little stands. Later on, I understand there's going to be a concert of the former Senegalese culture minister, the great Youssou N'Dour. Jean-Emile, what's the vibe where you are?
Well, François, I have to say the vibe is still building because they've only just opened the doors for the Station Afrique for the fans to spill in. People have already been lining up for that concert. It is Senegal Day here at Station Afrique. So as you mentioned, Youssou N'Dour, the Senegal former tourism minister, as well as Dib Doundou Guiss, a Senegalese rapper who is likely to bring in a lot of crowds, at least the youth. Now, where I am behind me, at least, is the Algeria stand. And you've been talking about record-breaking athletes in terms of that refugee team. But now, if we can just talk about African gymnastics, especially with Kélia Nemo, the Algerian 17-year-old, born in France, raised here and representing Algeria as of just a couple of years ago. And now she has won Africa's first gold in the uneven bars in gymnastics. She beat her American and Chinese counterparts. And what a sensational story for the 17-year-old. So now we are definitely going to get a lot of buzz from the Algerians. Also having to contend with all the talk about boxer Iman Khalif, who is now into the semi-finals of the welterweight women boxing. That's going to be on Tuesday. And Thomas Bach, another one who has had to fend off questions. Tommy Bach, as you mentioned there, having to fend off questions about Khalif and her participation. But nonetheless, at least here at the Africa House, I mean, it's just good vibes. We just came from interviews at the other part of Porte Villette, where we met with Teddy Riner, the judo champion for France, and just talking about basically what it means to compete. And many people saying that he can give that kind of inspiration to athletes who have never won gold, like we saw with Algeria today, who have never actually been on the podium for their continent, let alone their country. So it's going to be really something here at Station Afrique. I'm sure the crowds are going to be building as we speak, and those concerts are going to be taking place right when we see a lot of African participation in the men's 100 meters, no doubt. So that is going to be a phenomenal semi-final ambience and final ambience there here at the Station Afrique on the big screens.
And we can see the big stadium, the big stage rather, behind you, Jean-Emile. Just to remind our viewers, where you are is across from where the athletes' village is in l'Île Saint-Denis. And there's a great mix of the local people who are sometimes first, second generation immigrants.
Yes, and that is exactly what this is about. It's about people not only embracing their new parentage, but also harking back to their countries of origin, and it's a whole mix, it's a whole cultural melting pot, and that's what the Olympics are all about. We were at India House earlier, where we met a whole lot of French people trying to integrate, not trying, but enjoying the integration with the Indian culture there. There's so many countries just being involved here. Africa is really trying to push for that Olympic representation, trying to show that it is ready to even host the event, possibly in years to come. We might see Morocco push for it. We might see Egypt as well. So, I mean, really, this is just a platform for that representation. And you see it all around with the flags, with the stalls, with the music, and the food. Don't forget that. It really is delicious.
And not to mention the beer. Jean-Emile, earlier you mentioned Teddy Riner, a legend who's had a legendary Olympiad. And let's take a little listen to what he had to tell you.
This year, you continue your career. Me, I love gold medal. And when you say, you have a big competition like the Olympic game at home in Paris, you want a beautiful way, a beautiful destiny. And today is a dream, a big dream, realized.
So there he is with his 2 gold medals around his neck. Jean-Emile, if I listen to that clip correctly, he's 37. Does he sound like he wants to go to Los Angeles to the next games?
35 still, so we're not going to put too many years on him just yet, but he is looking confident that he is going to be going to the Olympic Games in Los Angeles. He is seen as the father of judo in France, and no doubt, I mean, just look at his record, 5 Olympic golds, and he's been throughout all these Olympics. You know, if we can go back to London 2012, Beijing, Rio, Tokyo, and now here in France, where he has performed, and he's seen the new generation of judo coming through. He said he was just so proud to see them, and just enjoying the pressure, but also the upliftment of the French crowd. We saw at Champ de Mars Arena to win that mixed judo. What a sensational event it was last night, where France came back, and it was Teddy Riner who made that final knockout, well, a touchdown, if you could say, in the judo. That was the 4-3 win over Japan, and meant 2 golds on the bounce in the mixed teams for Teddy Riner and his team. But he's not going anywhere. He's looking to compete, and I must say, the man is so fit. He is 2 meters, 140 kilograms. He is an elite athlete. He can definitely compete in Los Angeles.
All right, an impressive presence. Jean-Emile Jammine, who's got the big stage behind him. Youssou N'Dour concert next. A tough assignment. Someone's got to do it. Thanks for joining us. James Vasina, we mentioned the women's cycling. It's just wrapped up. Tell us what happened.
Yeah, Kristen Faulkner then taking that gold for her. And also we've got Marianne Vos behind, and lots of Kopetas, the 2 of them.
Talk about veterans.
Talk about veterans and huge names in cycling themselves. So Belgium getting some representation, the Netherlands and the US. Makes total sense, and this is such an event, the cycling. I mean, it's one that I've been, honestly, personally, I think it's one of the most spectacular ones when it comes to the organisation of the Games in Paris, because we're used to seeing cycling in Paris. We see it every year with the arrival of the Tour de France. We see it around Paris, but we don't see cyclists going up, actually doing climbs in Paris. And we found out that is actually possible. You and I know it's possible because we take our Vilib and we go up and we struggle because those bikes are not made for climbing boots like in Montmartre. But the cyclists have shown us that today, and there is competition to be had. And that is one of the most impressive, I think, views that we can see. They've managed to keep the essence of cycling as well in this. This is one of the competitions that you can go and actually watch for free.
Yes, and you mentioned Montmartre. Like the men, the women did those 3 loops up the hill at Montmartre 3 times. It was the picture of the day for Saturday, taken by the French news agency AFP's Mauro Pimentel. Dancers of the Moulin Rouge Cabaret saluting eventual gold medalist Remco Evenepoel of Belgium as he went up the hill. Another Montmartre landmark that's just 2 blocks north of the Moulin Rouge is the Café des Deux Moulins, made famous by the 2001 cult classic movie Amélie. In the tradition, you talk about tradition, James Vasina, of cycling races of yesteryear, Germany's Nils Politt had to make a pit stop and chose the... Let's take a listen. Hopefully we can have a bit of sound here. There we go. he chose the Café des Deux Moulins, which drove the crowds wild. The crowds which were chock-a-block both inside and out. It really was packed for that. These Polites making a pit stop at this iconic Paris cafe, Craig Copetas.
It's like it's getting better and better and better. And I always just come back to, I don't know how the hell Los Angeles is going to top this. You got to do that in L.A. You're going to stop at a Texaco station and ask for a key.
All right, and a bathroom break becomes a news story.
Yeah, you can do that actually with these Olympics exactly. I mean, you couldn't have timed that anywhere better than this today.
Competitors are always starry-eyed when they enter their first Olympic village. That was the case last week for 17-year-old Félix Lebrun of the men's table tennis team.
It was unbelievable, the first day when we walked into the Olympic Village. It's great. It's really a dream. Everything's easy, everything's free. You can take what you want. So on that first day, we really made the most of it.
The food is free. And James Vasina, here we are now on the middle Sunday, and that 17-year-old kid is a bronze medalist.
He's a bronze medalist, and that's a genuine reaction from, as you say, a 17-year-old kid. I mean, it's just so natural, and clearly he's enjoying his time. Obviously, he would have wanted to go further, as his brother would have, but this is just such a genuine response from him to come out of him, and clearly he's enjoying his time.
Let's not overinflate the value of the Olympic Village, because many of the athletes, in fact, many of the ones I was with today at the golf, they don't want to stay there, and they aren't staying there. And this is one of the sore points of these games. The individuals on the United States Olympic Committee and the organizing committee don't like to talk about this. These wealthier athletes, they go and they stay at fancy hotel suites or out of town at resorts, and they don't go into the Olympic Village to enjoy it.
They're missing out.
Yeah, and they are. And there was a time when you were an athlete, you wanted to stay in the village. You wanted that experience. You wanted to be with your fellow athletes. You wanted to make new friends. That's not the case. Now, the committee does a great deal of selling the Olympic Athletes Village, but it's not all a bed of roses in there.
No, he's young and just...
Yeah, he is enjoying
it as,
And today he won a bronze medal. Novak Djokovic, first Olympic gold medal. Don't know if he's staying at the Olympic Village, but he beat Carlos Alcaraz in the final.
He beat Carlos Alcaraz. And François, I haven't seen Djokovic in that kind of a state after a game for I don't know how long. I mean, this is the last title that he needed to complete his trophy cabinet. This is game done, game completed. He's beaten everyone 100%. You can't be less. I mean, he can only clearly the views that we've had of him today. There's something that came out today after that win and was somewhat unexpected. I mean, yes, Olympics and tennis, it doesn't go that far back, not as far back as the Grand Slams that he's won at all, and the Grand Slams that he's won on that court too. But today there was a release of emotion from him, and to be honest, quite unexpected. I was quite surprised. I don't know about you guys, but seeing that was. It was not something that I was expecting to see from him, but clearly it meant so much to the
And as you mentioned,
the
tennis is one of those sports where you wonder if it should be an Olympic sport. Another one, first introduced at the Olympics in 1900, organizers stopped in 1920 when not enough competitors that year signed on. Golf made its return in Rio at the 2016 Games. This year, it's being held at the National Course, southwest of Versailles in Saint-Quentin and Yvelines. This is a timeline from 2018 when that same course hosted the Ryder Cup. Craig Copetas, you went out there for a butcher's.
Golf National in Guyancourt. It's soft, it's easy, it's theater, but it's not championship golf, and it certainly isn't Olympic-level golf. 72 holes, 60 players. None of the top ranked, as I mentioned, are staying in the Olympic Village. And the only thing more inflated than the value of the village, as I said, were the scores. The top 16 finishers all finished double-digit under par.
Right.
That is
So should it be an Olympic sport?
Yeah, and again, there are great golf courses in Paris, and they didn't go there. They didn't ask the people at Golf Saint-Cloud, which has been around since 1913. Oh, and by the way, Tony over at the organizing committee, you can see the Eiffel Tower from Gulf
Oh,
St. Cloud. I guess no one told you that. You got Bretèche out in the east, or one of the greatest courses in the world is in the south of France, called Villebon. And they didn't call Villebon either. If you're going to have surfing 10,000 miles away, could you have golf down at what's believed to be one of the greatest golf courses ever built by Robert Trent Jones Sr.? I mean, a classic course? No, they didn't call. What they decided was on this thing called arena golf, Francois. When this course out here was purpose-built in the early 90s to pack as many people in as they could.
So they're about selling tickets.
Yeah, and merchandise. And there's no shot value. They have a lot of rough. If you hit a bad shot, you're in a rough. You can't use tactics. It certainly has no reflection of the 500-year-old sport from Scotland. And I think Olympic golf, at least here, should be reclassified as a racket sport because someone was doing something behind the scenes to get the golf there. Shameful. Shameful.
A conversation that we can continue. James, coming up in some 90 minutes' time, what do you got for us?
well, we've got, I mean, if there's anything that we're going to keep ahead of tonight, it's going to be the 100 metres for the men's. We had the 100 metres for the women's yesterday. It's the showpiece of the Olympics. If you ask many people, this is the moment where this is, I mean, the winner from tonight is one of the biggest names that we're going to remember, even if we've had extremely huge performances throughout. We've had the likes of, as we mentioned, Teddy Riner. We've had the likes of Léon Marchand here in France. But the winner of the 100 metres his name is going to go down for many, many years to come. Even if, like last year, Marcel Jacobs, we didn't actually hear too much of him in between. He'll be back, but we have, as we just saw there, the man Noah Lyles, who's hoping to impress. He's going to be having quite a little bit of competition. Shane Thompson, Oblique Seville, also from Jamaica. Those two trying to aim for gold tonight. The Jamaicans who've not had the best of times in athletics so far. Mixed bag for them, especially in the women's last night. We've seen the last minute pulling out for Shelley-Ann Fraser-Price. Sharika Johnson also on Jackson on her side as well. So there could be anything can happen in these 100 metres. We've got the semi-finals to come before that. But the big name is, of course, Noah Lyles, we've been talking about so much ahead, and he's going to be hoping that he can get that gold.
And it'll be a first for him. Many thanks, James Vasina. Many thanks to Craig Copetas. Many thanks to you for joining us for this edition of Destination Paris.